In the winter of 1961, James Edwards and 186 other Black students gathered in front of the South Carolina State House, the state's Capitol building. As they marched, their demands were clear: ban segregation and all the discriminatory laws that made Black Americans second-class citizens. The students gathered peacefully in front of the State House building, but as the crowd grew, police arrived to break up the march. When the students refused to leave, all 187 were arrested for breach of the peace. The legal battle afterward became Edwards versus South Carolina, a landmark Supreme Court case. Sound familiar? Like Tinker versus Des Moines, this is another case about students and First Amendment protections. But this time, along with freedom of speech, the students claimed the police violated two more First Amendment rights: assembly and petition. What are the freedoms of assembly and petition? Did the police really violate these rights? And why do these freedoms matter in the US today? Let's find out. We've learned that freedom of speech protects the right to express ourselves, even if we're critical of the government. But what if you want to act on these views? That's where these next freedoms come in. Freedom of assembly protects the right to gather peacefully with others to express political views. What kinds of assemblies have you seen before? Marches, rallies, and sit-ins are all peaceful assemblies protected by the First Amendment. These assemblies are most protected in public forums, places traditionally used for public expression. Parks, sidewalks, and outside government buildings like the State House are all public forums. Then there's freedom of petition, which protects the right to ask the government to fix a problem without fear of punishment. There are lots of ways to contact the government and petition for change. What examples can you think of? Signing a petition, calling or emailing your elected official, and speaking at town halls are all ways people petition their representatives. Assembling with others is another way to petition the government too, just like the students in South Carolina did. But like the freedoms of speech and the press, these freedoms have their limits. When might the government be able to limit freedom of assembly? Think back to the limits on freedom of speech. The government can break up an assembly if there's compelling interest or a valid reason that protects the public, like preventing violence or ensuring emergency vehicles like ambulances can pass. Governments can also use content-neutral regulation, or laws that control the time, place, and manner of a gathering. These laws can regulate how an assembly happens, but not what is said there. For example, there can be laws limiting protests after certain hours, but you can't limit a protest just because of the political message. The limits on freedom of petition might seem familiar too. Petitions that are threatening, harassing, or disruptive to a government meeting aren't allowed. And you can't petition for a change that would violate someone else's rights, like trying to take away another person's freedom of speech. Now that we understand the freedoms of assembly and petition, let's revisit Edwards versus South Carolina to put the limits of these freedoms to the test. Remember, Edwards and his peers were arrested after marching peacefully to the South Carolina State House and calling for an end to segregation. The students claimed the police violated their freedoms of assembly and petition by arresting them. What argument do you think the students made to prove this? The students argued that the land outside the South Carolina State House was a public forum where their First Amendment strongly protects assembly. Plus, their assembly was peaceful. They were only gathered there to petition the government to end segregation. But South Carolina's government defended the arrests. What do you think their argument was? Think back to when the government can limit assemblies. State officials pointed out the government can break up an assembly if there's a compelling interest to do so. They argued that since the large crowd could have caused conflict and threatened public safety, the police had a valid reason to break up the protest. To state officials, the police's actions were content neutral and only about protecting the public. But to the students, their arrests weren't about maintaining order, they were about silencing their message. After hearing both sides, who do you think won the Edwards versus South Carolina case? Did the police violate the students' freedom of assembly and petition? In an 8-1 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Edwards and the students. Why do you think the judges sided with the students' arguments instead of South Carolina's? The court said that since the march was peaceful and took place in front of the State House, a public forum, the students' freedom of assembly deserved strong protection there. They also said the march did not pose a threat to public safety. These arrests weren't based on how the students were protesting, but what they were protesting. So, the arrests were not content neutral. They were basically political censorship, which violated the students' freedoms of speech, assembly, and petition. Edwards versus South Carolina was a huge victory for the civil rights movement and emphasized just how important this freedom to gather and call for political change is. Edwards and his classmates are part of a long democratic tradition of gathering to petition for change. Why do you think the freedoms of assembly and petition are so important in a democracy? The freedom of petition lets people use their voice to demand change from your representatives, which is what civic participation is all about. And freedom of assembly only makes these voices stronger. When like-minded people join forces, it can amplify their political message to the government. Together, these two freedoms are key tools of civic participation for everyday people. And for civil rights activists like Edwards, public gatherings were one of the most effective tools at the time to change public opinion. People across the country saw these marches, rallies, and sit-ins on their living room TVs. As protesters gained public support, the changes they petitioned for followed. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned segregation in all public spaces, a step closer to the justice the students petitioned for. Decades later, this tradition of civic participation lives on in Black Lives Matter, a social movement that started in 2013 as a response to the discrimination and violence Black Americans have faced in encounters with the police. The movement took the global stage in 2020 after a video captured the death of George Floyd, an African-American man killed by police. Activists gathered everywhere to respond to the killing, from streets to outside government buildings. They reached out to elected officials by phone, email, and social media, petitioning for changes to police practices and budgets. But this movement also ignited a national debate over the limits of free assembly. Critics argued that some protests turned violent, and the government should be stricter with regulating Black Lives Matter gatherings. But supporters argued that most demonstrations were peaceful, and just like in the civil rights era, even peaceful protests were labeled as disturbing public order by people who didn't like the political message. These debates are worth it in democracies because real change often begins in movements like these, with ordinary people gathering and speaking up. And if you live in the US, you have the freedom to assemble and petition the government too. What's an issue that you're passionate about? And how would you use your freedom of assembly or petition to take action on it? Let's review our key takeaways. We explored how the freedom of assembly protects the right to gather publicly and express political views, while the freedom of petition protects the right to demand changes from the government without punishment. In Edwards versus South Carolina, these students peacefully exercised these freedoms to call for an end to segregation. And the Supreme Court ruled in the students' favor after the police violated their First Amendment rights. We also connected these students to the broader democratic tradition of assembly and how public gatherings in social movements like Black Lives Matter continue shaping the US's democracy today. And remember, you can participate in this democratic tradition too. Start small. Sign an online petition or message an elected official on social media. You might be surprised how small actions can make an impact. In our next lesson, we'll explore one last First Amendment right, the freedom of religion. And remember, this is your world. Let's work together to make it better. See you next time. Hey, hey.